Greetings. Today's topic is a little unusual. I call it Jesus, Tesla, and supercharging, but for $100 for your parking space. The second thing we look at today is we have an update what's going on with the production facilities that are alleged to be in Sacramento, California. And the answer to that is nope, they're not in Sacramento, but we do have an update because it's an important update given how that affects trucks. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our site, please take time to like and subscribe. If you're a regular visitor, welcome back. I also wanted to note that your likes and your comments as well as your support on Patreon really helps our channel continue to provide quality information. So much appreciated. Any questions posed, or if you say hello, I will say hello at the end. Most of our viewers have asked that I not engage with folks in session earlier because it kind of messes up the flow of the conversation. So I like to engage certain dialogue, and I also like to come up with solutions to the problems that we introduce, because I think that it shows that we put some effort into it, etc. There's one problem that's been lurking that I have not figured out the answer to yet, and I wanted to share it with you guys, share solutions I have. I think my solutions suck, but at least it shows that we made some effort. And what that's about is that it was just announced that another 30 new supercharger locations were introduced throughout parking facilities in greater New York. That's Manhattan, Long Island, etc. And so primarily the whole idea is that you have the option, if your facility doesn't have a fast charging place, to once or twice a week go to a supercharging facility in a building near you, and I'm thinking maybe reserve a supercharging slot, fill up your car like you would at a gas station, and then go back home. So I thought this was fascinating because it turns out that one of the problems you have is that, as one of my friend's business partners highlighted, if he goes to a supercharger facility in a large building in Chicago, much like the New York facility, they charge him a parking fee, which Chicago's cheaper, but I've seen an hour in New York cost $44 for parking, and that's for 1 hour. And a lot of these places do that routine where it's like, hey, your first 20 minutes is $44, but if you stay for 2 hours, it's $50. So they know people are going to be in for brief periods, and they'll hit them with that big fee. So if you get to middle of Manhattan during the business day, easy $40 to park for an hour, could be as high as $70 for an hour, and maybe $100 for the day. So I point this out to you because this is what urban dwellers are having to deal with, and I'm impressed to hear that they're actually Tesla owners or wannabe owners that are operating in the middle of high density cities like Manhattan that want to pay these kind of fees to get their vehicles charged up. So bottom line is that given the introduction of the Model 3, there's a need for a lot more supercharger stations. And the solution to this is to start putting supercharger facilities inside these garages. I'm actually hopeful that Tesla is generating revenue off of this because obviously the parking companies are cleaning up as people go in and out for 1 or 2 hours to have their vehicles charged. But it's obviously not ideal. If you're not a suburban dweller, I'm hard pressed to figure out why you'd want to spend $100 to park while you get your free electricity, because it's still $100 to charge your car. So I just think this is amazing. But if you're wealthy, who cares? $100, no big deal for parking. But if you're in that, you have to manage your budget a little bit. I can't see it. This brings up the next part of my suggestion regarding this, which is why I put Jesus in this session, which is, as you recall, perhaps from the Bible, it says that wherever two or more are gathered in his name, then there's a presence. So I kind of bring this up because there's a little bit of Tesla sort of what's going on if you review that says that if you have 6 people inside of a corporation, you get a free supercharger. So this brings up an interesting question. What if you created a limited liability corporation or some other BS corporate entity that does count as a corporation, and 6 of you that are Model S or Model 3 owners decide to become a corporation? Does this entitle you to have a supercharger installed? So now the 6 of you can all use this facility. So I think this is a brilliant solution to the drama I just described, because in theory, if you rent a parking space, 6 of you go in on that parking space, and now you're the corporation that owns that parking space, you could simply schedule the time that you want to charge, and you're only competing with 5 other cars. So the chances that you can get your routine charging done in an efficient manner, and heck, this is a corporation, it's a profit center perhaps. So in theory, you could even write that off. So I have some brilliant people as part of my viewership, including accountants, lawyers, etc. I want you guys to go on the attack and tell me I'm wrong, because I believe that folks in high density areas are going to be buyers of everything Tesla produces, and everyone is going to need solutions to how do you do supercharging in dense inner city locations. And I think this is a creative way of solving that problem. So, at any rate, no comments yet, but I'm looking forward to what you guys have to say about what I've introduced here as a dialogue point. The second thing that pops up is what's up with the Sacramento factory of Tesla. Now, I'm fascinated by the comment because, as you'll recall, if you look at the title that we had on that show, we listed the fact that Tesla had leased 1.3 million square feet of factory space in a place called Livermore, California. Now, how one of my viewers got it that this plant was in Sacramento, I didn't know, but I just wanted to note that, if you're not in the U.S. and you're in other places, mentally, there are a lot of people that know where California is, you know where New York is, you know where Chicago is, and then when we get to California, you kind of know where San Francisco is and you know where Sacramento, but Livermore it might as well be a suburb of San Francisco, because it's a grand total of 30 miles from San Francisco, and it actually is 70 miles to Sacramento from there. So forget about Sacramento for now. Now, I will admit this. If Tesla had chosen to build this factory in Sacramento, I would have been applauding. The reason is that the cost of operation in Sacramento is a fraction of the cost of operating in the Bay Area of San Francisco, where Tesla is located. But the beauty of having the plant close, within 20 miles of the Fremont production facility, is that you can share resources of parts, personnel, et cetera, with something 20 miles away, where if it's 70 to 100 miles away, you have the nightmare of traffic and other challenges of getting to that other location. So it's a bad deal that they didn't locate in Sacramento, but it's a good deal because there's still a lot of coordination between factory and plant that can occur. So I have to admit that when this plant was leased, it was actually leased in September of last year, and it's actually scheduled to open sometime between now and the end of September. What do I mean by open? Well, what's been happening is all the trucking development and the development of the Roadster has been going on in factory space in a place called Fremont, California. Again, this gives real easy access to everything that's going on in that space nearby where the Fremont plant is. And so that close coordination can occur with all types of personnel. By moving out of where the trucking and Roadster are being developed right now into this 1.3 million square feet, we're now in a position where you have manufacturing set up so both vehicles can be produced with space. So I think it's good news. Another way Tesla isn't in blazing lights explaining what's going on here, because they do have obstacles of, city permits and other things that they have to get through, which I think they're efficiently moving through. But this facility in Livermore has a bunch of benefits next to a rail link, very close to a major freeway. It's not midpoint, but it's between the Gigafactory and the Fremont plant. So, resources that are coming from either spot can roll into this facility on an efficient basis by rail or um, by road. The next thing I'd want to cover on this, and they also have BART access, so it's also a good commute spot relative to employees that might be working there that don't want to deal with the nightmare of traffic in the Greater Bay Area. I have to admit, when I saw that they had done this facility, it was an interesting deductive process because, as you may recall, back in November, they were talking about getting the ramp straight within the Fremont plant. So my gut was saying to me, oh no, Elon is extending himself in a way that potentially results in bankrupting the company. So why in the world would he lease another 1.3 million square feet? And if you look in the San Jose Mercury under the announcement of this facility, they indicated on there that the only reason that they leased the space was so that they can vertically integrate better on parts. And so I was thinking, hey, that sounds good, but if you've already got the car being produced, which parts are you going to be producing in this new facility? And the answer is you don't need 1.3 million square feet for parts that would be part of the Model X or Model S or Model 3 X or S at this point. There is a part called a truck, and there is a part called a roadster that it's a perfect setup for these being built and having room to do so in an ideal location relative to the rest of Tesla's assets, including management, etc. I have to admit that there's a bunch of reasons why they've done this location. What I think is weird about the place is that if they had gone 20 miles further, the cost of leasing would have been 1/2 the amount for double the space. So in a place, there are several cities between Sacramento and Livermore that move into what's called the Central Valley. So literally you have these former areas that still currently have large farms that are producing. So in essence, what they're doing is taking the farm, ripping out the crops, putting up a square office building there, and then leasing it as industrial space to large companies that need that space. Another 25 or 30 miles from where Tesla chose to locate is the intersection of what's called I-5, which is the major roadway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and 580, which is another major road that moves traffic throughout the Bay Area. So had they gone to that location, I'd have been like, hip hip hooray, for a whole bunch of reasons. Number one, housing is a lot cheaper in that area. Therefore, employees could find housing nearby cheaper, easier to fuel your workforce. Number two, land costs are 1/4 what they are in the Greater Bay Area. But number three, all the resources of the Gigafactory, well, the Gigafactory is easy because it's closer to the Gigafactory, but all the resources of the Fremont plant would be a further 30 miles away, which does have its logistical downsides, but frankly, I think it might have some upsides as well. I think that, this is pie in the sky on my part, but I wanted to put this out there, and that is this. I believe it won't happen, but let's put a what if out there. I believe that Tesla could actually sell the factory land and factory in Silicon Valley right now for about $25 billion, and then go to a place like just outside Sacramento, rebuild everything that they had in Fremont for $2 billion, maybe $3, but on 4 times the land. So growth is no issue. And the benefit is that you still have the access to the Bay Area workforce and the management team of Tesla, 40 miles away in San Francisco, but you now have the beauty of all this new cash on the balance sheet that allows you to reduce debt like crazy. And you have all this cash that's just jumped on in your face. That's beautiful. Now, this isn't going to happen, but I'm just throwing it out there as my wish list for Tesla, that they would go out, build a test track around the factory and put up a nice sized factory for a fraction of the cost in the Central Valley. It's only 20 miles away. Come on, guys. Let's get with it here. Stop wasting money on expensive real estate in Silicon Valley. Because cash is definitely helpful to have as you're trying to build out new things. The other thing of note in terms of real estate locations is note that Tesla has just announced they're going to go from 35 gigawatt hours to 105 gigawatt hours at the plant. So at the plant that they're building in Reno, Nevada. Now, bottom line is that's a tripling of the size of that factory. The mystery for me about the tripling of that size, the tripling of that size is awesome. So, I just saw a question that made me laugh, so I'm going to respond to that in 1 second, but I just want to finish off my general space currently. And so, in general, I just want to highlight that there's a lot going on here. There are a lot of moving parts. There's a reason why Tesla's doing a bunch of things. In theory, the issue that pops up is if Tesla is going to do another 5,000 vehicles per month or per day, or I'm sorry, per week, times that number a month, can they actually get another 5,000 Model 3s produced out of the factory right now that's straining at the gills to produce 5,500 vehicles a week? Kind of interesting point there. It shows that, yeah, another factory may be in order. So because this is the finish of my primary comments, thank all of you for saying hello and the smiles. I saw you, Jim, out there, etc. Thanks for the question about who would buy. I don't think you quite understand this game. There are about 50 companies right now that would all line up to bid on all or part of this, starting with large developers who would then parcel it up to smaller units to companies that need space in this area. But everything from Apple to Google to Adobe, all these companies are trying to expand in the Bay Area, but office space is extremely expensive and hard to find. And so you almost have enough space there to build another small city and with all the amenities right in that spot. This is speculation because the cost of moving or rebuilding a new factory would be prohibitive. But if you start the process, hey Norman, hey Jacques, if you start this process where you're building in Fremont, guess what? You've already started the process of moving to this new location. As you build out and you're continuing to grow, guess what? This sounds dumb now, but in 5 years from now, when Tesla has relocated to this area, do not be surprised because it makes sense from about 50 different directions. So, as you know, when I close out my show, I've begun to sort of dive into some of the medical things I'm being exposed to as I meet people that are experts in different areas. This week's show focuses on an interaction I had with an internal medicine person from a place called Innova. And his recommendation health-wise is be aware that if you get skim milk instead of whole milk, look on the side of the package and you'll notice that there's a lot more sugar in skim milk than there is in whole milk. And what he was pointing out from this is the fact that the problem is with sugar, not with fat. So one of his concerns is that there's something called fatty liver disease. Take a look at this. Why does this happen? People drinking 1 or 2 Cokes a day for 4 or 5 years end up with a certain kind of liver disease related to the consumption of all that sugar. And so his highest recommendation is that we reduce the intake of sugar and expand intake of everything else, because all that sugar intake is really harmful to our bodies, and there are a number of cancers that we could avoid based on the nature of the diet that we're taking in. So as you may recall, I'm doing my 20 leg lifts a day. I don't have my weight on my legs, but I am doing my 20 leg lifts a day that we discussed to help strengthen the quad muscles. Also wanted to encourage you to check out the 5-2 diet or the paleo diet, good health processes to consider. Try the 30 SPF as well to make sure, skin cancer issues don't pop up regardless of skin tone. And again, I want to thank all of you for taking time out to visit with us as usual. Hey, good idea, Richard. I'll add them. I wanted to thank you again for joining us. Please remember to like, subscribe, and any comments would be appreciated. If you'd like to, we'd also appreciate your... ooh. Hey, Sean, thanks for the comment. If you watch the whole show, the titles I chose will make sense to you. Any rate, I'll dig up some links for you guys so we can attach those relative to the eating and other recommendations that we have. Yeah, Sean, jump to the front and all the titles are explained. If you guys have any questions based on what we've posted here today, feel free, happen to dig up research on answering those. I also wanted to, if you're the person who asked about what's happening with the Sacramento plant of Tesla, go on Indeed.com and you'll see that there are 389 jobs listed that are open for Tesla at this new facility. And so it's definitely on the process of opening right now, and they're hiring personnel to make it happen. Any rate, I see stuff rolling by that might be worth commenting on, but I can also answer those, responses in after comments. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and any of your questions that are posed affects what we do in terms of show topics and ideas. Today's are somewhat covered by questions that have been posed by viewers. At any rate, thank you again for joining us, and please like and subscribe. Don't forget we could use some help on Patreon if you would, and all your questions help generate fodder for our show of things to cover aggressively. Have a great day. Bye for now, and we'll look forward to seeing you later this week on Thursday's show to sort of look into what's happening to buyout at this point, because as you know, the stock price is up because more teeth are being put into Elon Musk's argument that he's preparing for the buyout, so it's shoving the stock up higher than it normally would be. Have a great day. Bye for now. Thanks for joining us.